How to get your business noticed in 2019 is why I'm here today. So what will we cover firstly? We were going to be covering who am I, what is PR and your PR top tips and any questions that you have for me. So let's give this a go. Who am I? So I'm Joanna Earle, I'm PR Media Manager at Reflect Digital, but I didn't used to be. I used to be a journalist for 10 years. I graduated from Leeds University in 2007 with a broadcast journalism degree. After studying at University of Roehampton, dance and media, I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I was like, no, I definitely want to be a journalist. I did some work experience at ITV News, the main news desk in London, in Gray's Inn Road, and I was just like, this is brilliant. This is where I want to be. I don't want to report necessarily. I want to be on production, so I wanted to be a producer, and that's where it all took off really. And then I decided to, went to university, got the degree because my friend who was at ITV said the only way really you can get into journalism is by doing this. So off you go. So that's what I did. I worked at ITV News Meridian, Channel 5 News as an output producer and as an assistant news editor. So at Channel 5 News I was assistant news editor, which meant I was on news desk, reacting to any breaking news that there may be. I was liaising with the news editor at the time, whoever would be on shift, and would be reacting to breaking news. Big stories we'd cover would be obviously Grenfell Tower, the 2012 London Olympics, any huge murder cases would be there. We'd have to get the crews together, we'd have to organise the crews to be at a certain point to make sure to get that interview, that exclusive. I'll be liaising with journalists, going to sorting out an edit in like an hour, turning it around for the programme at 6 o'clock. It would be crazy, basically. But it was a lot of fun and I loved it. And I was doing that for around sort of 3 or 4 years, whilst also freelancing at various radio stations and other news desks across the county and across the UK. Obviously, I'm from Kent, so I just based myself for a bit as well. But yeah, and again, I was covering so many stories that I was going through it today, like, oh my gosh, I covered that. I couldn't remember. So here this is just some random things that I came across today. Met Mick Jagger. I interviewed the former Archbishop of Canterbury and met the Fonz or Henry, which is brilliant. I was like, oh my God. I know, so oh gosh, I literally was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. And yeah, random. I think he did a lot of stuff on, he sort of supports children who are dyslexic, so he writes books and encourages children to read and stuff, so that's why I actually interviewed him. And then also I did lots of royal rotas, and as everybody knows at Reflect, I'm a bit of a royal fan. And I loved it. Every time I'd get called out to just do a story, I would be like, brilliant, yeah, it would be me that would go. So I covered the Queen coming to Canterbury, Prince Harry coming to Folkestone, meeting the soldiers there. And then I also covered Wills and Kate's, there was the St Patrick's Day parade, and I covered that as well. And then also covered Kate arriving in Margate. She went to the Tenor Contemporary, and I ended up in Heat magazine. For some reason, that's me, and that's Kate, and that was some sort of some artwork. That's the one picture that just went everywhere, and of course I was in it, and it was very embarrassing. Well, I holding about 3 different phones, doing voices for the radio, filming it for video for KMTV, I think that was at the time, and yeah, it was a bit crazy, but it was a lot of fun. And then also, aside from all the glamorous side of journalism, I covered lots of exclusives, particularly when I was working at KMTV, KMFM, Radio News, where I was for 4 years, and KentOnline. And a big thing was my exclusive on antidepressants and how much they'd gone up by 60% in the county. I'd also covered stories with a recovering alcoholic for Alcohol Awareness Week, but it was just bringing up those stories and that human element touch that I loved the most, actually. I just really enjoyed speaking to people on the street and just hearing their stories. I love talking to people and finding out about them and stuff, and it was just really powerful. And that got covered throughout the whole of Kent. BBC Kent also picked up on my story as well, so I was really that's one thing I was quite proud of. And then I joined Reflect Digital. So a year and a half ago, as Becky mentioned, I decided to go into PR, really just to, I've been working as a journalist or in journalism for 10, 11 years, and I just thought, actually, I want to upskill myself a bit now, and I want to be the other side of it, and I don't want to go into London and do 13, 14-hour shifts anymore. You do just get a bit drained. So I thought, actually, not saying I'm not super busy here, but it's actually a different side to it, and I really enjoy it, and so far so good. So what is PR? So basically it tells a story. Without that, then you wouldn't be able to literally, it would just be nothing. you would get we used to get press releases, and it would just be, well, why are they sending this to me? And there would be the top line would be at the bottom of the press release, or there would just be about some product launch, and you'd be like, well, is there a hook to it? Is there a reason why you're sending me this? It always has to be a story. It's vital. It could be from as simple as a landmark time for a family firm. So A-Sheds, as one of our clients at Reflect Digital, they celebrated their 30 years in the business, so just got them in the Kentish Express. It was just a nice little story for them. Or it was Whitehead Moncton move out of King Street. I mean, Maidstone office after 180 years, which it got picked up, which was great. It could be actually gathering data and putting that data into a press release. For Ben Siggins, which is another client of ours, we collected lots of data and looked at how the prices of a home had shot up over the last 20 years. This got covered around Christmas time. We released this, and it was in that gap where actually there's not that much that goes on. It's always a good time to release anything, because journalists will love, yes, we want a story. So this actually got really covered quite well. Kent Live picked it up, which is again the target audience for Ben, or who he wanted at the time. He was on KMTV and he was on ITV News Meridian, so it got picked up quite a bit. PR, it's reactive. So not only are you writing a press release for clients, but you've also got to think, actually, I need to be reactive. If there's a story that breaks and you are part of that conversation or part of the industry, you think, well, actually, I can do this. I can comment on this. So why don't I tell people about it? Be part of that conversation and drive it. It helps promote your values. So obviously, with the 4-day week, Becky firmly believed that she wanted to do this. She was so passionate about it, and the well-being of our staff, and it was something that she was so engrossed with, and we actually really got into it. And there was various data that said that it improved staff well-being and mental health. So yeah, she was on Sky, which is really, really crazy. And it also got covered on Yahoo Finance in the local papers, but also on The One Show, Radio 2. It just went a bit crazy, and actually still is. It's still, because it's such a topical subject, actually it's quite big at the moment. At the time we released this, I noticed that the TUC had done a big report about it as well. So I was like, this is the time. I kept on saying, actually, a few weeks before, we should release it now. We should release it now. Like, hold fire. and I was like, okay, we'll hold fire for just one more day. And then the BBC BBC Kent actually wanted to run it the day before we were going to release it, and we just had to. They got a bit funny, but you know, we hadn't told staff about it at the time, and it was we were like, actually, don't listen to me. But yeah, we had to turn them down. But actually, you know, it got a lot of coverage, and as I say, it's still a really conversational piece, and it's something that we can pick up on. So if there is anything that if it does come up in the news, we can talk about it. Actually, when we spoke to the One Show, it was only after sort of a month, I think, that we've been doing it. So we were able to discuss that, how it's gone and everything over that time. So PR, it's credible as well. You need to be that credible source. So, for instance, with Whitehead Moncton, they appeared on ITV Meridian again, and it was about GCSE results day, which is just a general day. Loads of people cover it, and I was like, no, but this is the educational lawyer here, and he advises lots of families about what to do if their GCSEs aren't right. On that, you know, some parents, you know, are a bit annoyed that their children haven't got the right results. But also this year, or last year, the GCSE grading had changed as well. So Graham knew lots about that, and he was really well informed. But I thought, actually, we just want him to talk about on the day as well. And so I got him on ITV Meridian, but it wasn't just about the fact that it was a Whitehead Moncton story. It was part of the conversation, similar to the 4-day working week. It was part of the conversation where he could add his expertise, and he was credible, basically, and people go to him, and it's just been in the background, as Lauren was saying, that it's just in you know, people are aware, oh, that's Whitehead Moncton, and then you gradually pick that up. So he's also appeared on KentOnline, again, their target media audience in Kent and Kent Live. Just they gradually feed it in. So the more he's commenting, the more he's that expert, and the more he's that thought leadership piece, really. And again, with Becky, I actually know a lady that works at the Sun Employment, which might help. But I knew there was obviously International Women's Day, and there was this big thing about women in tech. And we thought, well, why don't we join the dots? And Becky just came up with some top tips, and we got that in. So again, it's just making that thinking about outside the box, but also. But if hopefully, as I go on to soon, you'll have a content calendar, and you'll be able to see, okay, this is coming up soon. This is something we could talk about. And be part of that conversation. Just tell me if I'm going too fast or anything as well. But it also could be part of your marketing strategy. So, which is a big thing, really. So obviously you've got the advertising side of things, which is great, but also PR, it sort of assists that, and it works alongside it. So obviously advertising is paid, but public relations is earned. It builds exposure advertising, but public relations builds that trust that I was talking about. I think it works, so far it's worked alongside it really well, and also it helps with the SEO side of things as well, and getting those backlinks that we so desperately want, Paul. So PR top tips, and these are my top tips, being now PR Media Manager. So create that PR and marketing calendar. It's vital to know what's going on throughout the year, so that you can plan things in advance and not be, okay, this is coming up and this is coming up and this is coming up. I'm sure you've all got a marketing calendar of some sort, but it's just good to put in those key dates and know when you want to launch something. Also, you've got to work out, again, as I mentioned before, is it news? Is it newsworthy? If it's not, you've really got to question yourself. Like, you ask lots of people, ask people that you, perhaps friends or family, is it news? Are you bothered about this? So think of yourself down in the pub and you're talking about it, and you're like, okay, is what I'm saying interesting to you? It may be really interesting to my employer or something, but actually, is it going to get the headlines? Timing is everything. I mentioned this a lot to a lot of colleagues. A lot of people say, oh, can we release this? I'm like, well, why? What's the hook? Why do we want to do this? The example of this is when we did the world's most expensive trophy for Ford Awards. So we created the world's most expensive trophy, which it was designed and everything. We got it all specced out. Obviously, we didn't actually make it, but we got it replicated. So it's probably about this high. And we got it up. So we got to make sure that it was all right as it could be. And it was also released on their 40th anniversary as well. So it's their ruby anniversary, is it? And it got picked up, so it got picked up in The Sun, KMTV, Radio Kent, TalkSport talked about it, but only because they'd seen that little bit in The Sun. They called us up saying, we've just seen that bit in The Sun, can we talk about the world's most expensive trophy? And then BBC Radio Kent called and were like, oh, we really want to do like a piece on this. And then KMTV wanted to do a piece on it as well, and it sort of escalated a bit, and which is what we wanted, and it happened over sort of 3 or 4 days. Yeah, so timing is everything, and also the whole point of that was because we released it around the World Cup as well. So, just ahead of it. So we wanted to drive that conversation and get people talking, but not too near the World Cup where everyone will just be focused on the football. And this is building it up to the actual day and the event. And know how to communicate your story. So a press release is great. It's generally my favourite way of communicating the story, but it does depend on who. If a journalist prefers to just have a quick email saying, oh, we want to cover this, are you interested in this, and that's fine. Personally, I used to enjoy getting a press release sent to me. It was really clear, not that the work had been done, but everything was there. So if it was an event, the time was there, the date, stupid things like that, and it was all clear. And also it had the top line there ready for you. You don't want to, as I mentioned before, you don't want to be scrolling down to the bottom of the press release and being like, well, that's a news story there. You want it at the top. So you've got to know how to communicate your story and tailor your story to the right media outlets as well. We used to get various press releases, and it would just be the most BBC, the TV licensing would send press releases out to commercial radio stations, and we're like, well, we don't cover the BBC. We're not going to mention the BBC, our opposition, stupid things like that. And also your audience as well. We used to cover for the KMFM news, particularly, it would be women in their 30s, and then we'll get some sort of pension story come in, and we're like, well, really, that's not really for us. So you haven't really researched the outlet or anything, and that would be one bugbear. You've got to tailor your story to the right media outlets. And also get social. A big part of my job now is TweetDeck, which I never really used to rate Twitter that much, but actually now I really do. It's just brilliant, and it gets you to the journalists who are going to be covering big stories. And you'd notice if you go to hashtag Joanna request, you'll notice lots of big journalists covering big stories, and they want some comment on that. And it's a really good way of interacting with them. And also, if they're not covering that, if you can't actually comment on that particular story they want to cover, it's just you're getting that contact for another story perhaps they could cover, or we could comment on, if that makes any sense. And then it's the most important part with getting social is that also your PR campaign should be on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, as Lauren was mentioning. So it's all joined up and all together. And yeah, so if you could get interaction from people about a particular campaign, it's just branching out that bit further and making sure it gets released at the same time. And finally, so don't give up. If your press release hasn't gone out and something's happened on the day, some big breaking news story has broken, and you've just released this really great press release, sometimes these things do happen, but don't give up. You can just try the next day, or you can try in a week's time, or if it fails find a way of resurrecting it if you can. But if it doesn't, and that's just life. You don't really know what a journalist really wants until you send it and you're like, oh yeah, it's been picked up. PR is kind of like hit and miss, but hopefully with all these tips and skills and you get picked up, then hopefully that will help. So yeah, any questions? I think that's it.